Welcome back. Well, we all witnessed the 2014 Grand National. Not for the first time. There was confusion at the start on a couple of occasions, which led to the jockeys being called in. Is there anything you can say about the situation? Yeah. Is it true that Tony McCoy and Davy Russell were the two jockeys that went in and made the point and went, no, we're not?
Yeah, well, they called them in. They wanted to hold an inquiry, which I'm surprised about. 2 years ago, when there were issues at the start, they simply said that we can't deal with this here. We'll deal with it in London after the event. But they wanted the jockeys in. We were told that the jockeys had to appoint a spokesperson, because you've got every jockey apart from Brendan, because Battle Group had planted, so he couldn't be involved in it, was called in. They finished the first part of the inquiry. There was then the final race, the bumper. Jockeys were expecting to go back in for the inquiry to continue. Amid all the confusion, Irish jockeys with flights to catch and ferries to catch and people who weren't quite sure what was going on. And then they got wind that the inquiry had already finished and was concluded. They were being given 2 days.
And it was over this Easter period, right? That was the initial...
Well, I don't know, because they were they were only informally told about this.
Right.
And the jockeys collectively, or those that were there, because some had gone already, and there was a lot of confusion.
But how does that organise? Do they go, right, we want all 39 jockeys? At what point do they say we want everyone in? I mean, is it straight after the...
But after a little while after the Grand National, they were saying that they were going to hold an inquiry. Look, we don't know what the BHA did. We've not had anything formal from the BHA. We've had a copy of the transcript. We're not aware of whether they've decided to take any action or not yet. We don't think it's necessary, and if it is,
do you think
there'll be a hearing.
That might well be it?
No idea. No idea. Your guess would be as good as
Why
good
would
as
it
mine.
take the BHA so long to come to a decision?
They are information gathering, they say.
Right. Okay.
But the frustration for us, and it is a frustration. So Brendan, we're on Battle Group in the Scottish Grand National, and I have to say I didn't notice anything, apart from the fact he'd planted, and I'd seen Brendan give him a couple of taps down the shoulder. But bearing in mind, this is Battle Group's last chance. It's his last chance. If he refuses to race again, everyone knows he's going to be banned from running. And I didn't notice anything. So that Saturday, they've charged and press release the charges today on Brendan 5 days later. We're nearly 2 weeks after the Grand National, and no one's any the wiser about what's going on.
You're dealing with that today, right?
Well, we found out about it today. So Brendan, he'll be represented by Rory McNee, so he'll be speaking to Rory over the next few days. We've got the footage that the BHA
So who's going to have to defend himself for dealing with an obstinate horse, whose career, not only his career is effectively over if he doesn't race, but possibly worse for the horse?
And how does reputation like that, do the BHA informally ask for it, and then he gets...
he got informed, we got copied into the letter. They'd informed him this morning what was going on, so we got copied into the letter. That legal representation is covered by our insurance.
And what kind of...
There's some irony here of a charge of basically his use of the whip down at the start, which I've looked at it and I don't think it's remotely offensive, but that's something that will get played out at the hearing next Friday. And then a horse they've retired him before the BHA have prevented him from running. And you know he's going to be looked at. He'll have a happy retirement in a field. Assuming, because not all racehorses will have a happy retirement in a field, not because they love the routine, they've got used to the routine and enjoy the routine of regular work. So there's a slight irony that they're having Brendan in, because they probably had a few complaints from people who were watching it on TV, and he's now left to his own ends with no provision necessarily made for him. Not that there will be a problem, I'm sure. It's a frustration.
But potentially difficult time for Brendan. Any thoughts on that, Billy, sitting at home watching the...
Yeah, I mean, I got offended. He's Formula 1 expert. He watches horse racing twice a year, the Gold Cup, the Grand National, and every year he phones me up and he says, what were they doing at the start? In 2014, have they not found a better way of starting the race? Absolute farce. And he thinks it's really funny.
This is an armchair warrior who sits there, who watches the world's greatest horse race with 40 runners, trying to organise 40 chasers with no stalls to all go off at exactly the same time. It's nigh on impossible. These horses are worked up, there's a lot of noise and crowded. It's a completely unique situation. And horses are just, you can't just whisper in its ear and say, just stand still for a while. Well, they're just not going to do it.
There's a question mark at the time, though, when Battle Group sat at the back.
If a horse is planted,
you
cannot stop. You cannot wait for a horse like that. You cannot say that horse planted, everyone stop, go back to the start. That is not acceptable.
And that's what it looked like was happening on TV, and it wasn't. The jockeys did what they do every single day of the week for jump racing, which was get themselves told 30 seconds, get themselves in order. And they were just lining themselves up. They've walked forward, Hugh the starter, and they have a tricky job.
I think it's also
starters.
quite obvious as well with the Grand National. They've probably been advised not to go at it so quickly because, you know, you used to have the first, second, fence falls used to go really at it.
All very well to be advised, but it's an incredibly difficult situation.
It's an absolute storm in a teacup. They've lined up a little bit too soon, but they do that every day of the week. But in 40 horses in front of a crowd of 100,000, it's slightly different. They've been told by Hugh, no, it's too early. They've stopped before the tape. They've taken a turn. They've gone back.
Is it fair to say that BHA trying to, or someone, maybe the stewards there, are trying to apportion blame when it could conceivably be everyone is in it and they're trying to find a scapegoat?
To me, the way forward now, because the second start, which was great, they were called forward, they were off, and when you look closely at Battle Group, he was going, and he was going with enthusiasm. Yeah. He was pulling himself to the front, and he'd have gone off, and goodness knows what would have happened. But the tape didn't go up on one side, so there was a slight malfunction there. And it's just... The right approach now is for us to, in my view and in our view, is to sit down with the BHA. Let's not take this any further. Sit down, let's talk about it, let's have a collegiate approach of saying, what more can we do? And there was barely a delay to the start of the race with everything that went on.
The race was, at the end of the day, the race was a terrific success. It was a terrific race.
The whole meeting was.
And at least we didn't have the whole race run before finding out that there was a full start. Yeah. Let's get over to Tom for more Twitter reaction.
Well, Mo Charge just says, thank you very much. He said, Jeff Banks, you're a top man. Got to stop this Twitter love. John Powell, I posed this question to the panel. Keep this one in mind, because I haven't got a clue what he's going on about. He said they had to scrap the territorial allocation of fixtures as it amounted to restraint of trade, I believe.
Yeah, I know
we'll let Jeff answer that in just a second. With regards to Battle Group, I'm aware Johnny Farrelly announced on Sunday, obviously, the gelding would be retired, and the reason being he's fallen out of love with racing. No doubt Battle Group knew about the pending Good Friday extension of racing and was bored to death of it. Back to the panel for the answer to John Powell's question, if we can.
Just quickly want to answer that, Jeff?
It used to be the case that Levy Board would control all the fixtures. Now it's in the hands of the racetracks. And in many ways that's not been a healthy position for the sport, because, of course, now everybody wants to race on a Saturday and everybody wants to have a festival, and they want to do that, but they don't want to be bothering with a Tuesday or a Wednesday afternoon. They don't want to bother. So it hasn't really been a positive development. And indeed Sunday, which is... I
want to spend the last few minutes, obviously Paul's involved in the Jockeys. There's been a number of injuries. We had Martin Harley's horrific injury, Jason Maguire. How are those two
the list
guys?
of jockeys off injured, we have a board in the office with jockeys injured. I mean, you must be looking at about 50 that are currently off injured, and there's been some horrible falls on the flat this winter. Jumping throughout the winter was really good. We had maybe 7 or 8 jockeys off.
Yeah, we had Jimmy in here, though. He's sort of saying, well, when the ground changes to good...
made a massive difference.
Makes a massive difference.
And an element about it. Jason, I saw Jason interviewed on Racing UK today, so he's in good spirits. He'll still be off for a little while longer. I'd feel bad naming the ones that I can think of, because the list is so long. Paddy Brennan's got injured this week. Yeah. Martin's in great form. I saw him in Newmarket this week. That was a horrendous fall.
You've obviously dealt with as well. You deal with situations where medical teams go in and make an assessment. Do you have a situation where jockeys want to get back into the saddle? We had the case with Dave Russell last year, and that's all been sorted. But are you sort of acting as an intermediate between jockeys who are desperate to get back? You have also instances like we had with Hayley Turner, I think, last year, whereby the injuries were observed as not as serious as they were. Is that a dilemma that you
and that's something we're trying to address on the back of Hayley and a subsequent incident with Stephen Mulqueen, who got injured at Doncaster. The racecourse in both circuits, the care on the racecourse that jockeys have is excellent. You know, they saved Jason at Stratford, and the hospital were great again. Doncaster Royal Infirmary, not so good. They missed Hayley's vertebral fractures and a pelvic fracture. Stephen Mulqueen, 4 fractured ribs, 3 fractured vertebrae, missed those totally.
So who misses this, Paul?
This is A&E's.
Right.
A&E departments. And not all, some A&Es are fantastic. St Peter's near Chertsey, wonderful. Cheltenham, fantastic. Gloucester, loads that are great, but 1 in 4 vertebral fractures are being missed, historically, from an audit we've done. So we've introduced sending jockeys off with the clip of the 4, whether that's on their mobile phone on the mobile phone of the racecourse medical officer when he goes with them, and that's really, really helping.
So that would have happened, like an example of Martin Hardy when he fell over. That's
Martin was
edited, and then presumably the hospital can take a look at the extent of the fall, whether there's head injuries involved or whatever, and make an assessment for
Yeah, so the racecourse sent him off with a DVD. He was accompanied by the racecourse medical officer. We were in the office, and it's literally as simple as you get the replay on the Racing Post, record the call. I texted it to the doctor because not all hospitals will allow you to put a DVD into one of their computers and play it because of their IT policies. And he went to Redgate. I've never yet to know, however well a jockey's been treated, the attendant consultant not be interested to see the mechanism of the fall. Not everyone watches racing. A lot of people in A&E don't. We fear that there are times when they just think when Hayley went to Doncaster, that some poor girl's just potted off her horse while cantering around a paddock. And actually, if you'd have seen Hayley's fall, you'd have never let her out of hospital that night. You'd have never let her go without X-raying and scanning her spine. And yeah, so we're dealing with it, and it is improved. But the care on the course is fantastic.
Presumably you have the other side of the coin where jockeys who don't earn a great living, do they get paid for being off? Do they?
There's a professional riders insurance scheme that's paid for by the owners, which pays them temporary benefits whilst they're off, and that's graded 1 to 9, with a jockey grade 1 less than 74 rides, and one at the top grade 9 more than 800, and the pay goes up. So they're compensated from that. But jockeys just want to get back. The whole time they're off, they're missing rides.
And do they
they're missing
sometimes
winners.
go, I'm fine, but they're not?
Yeah, and there is
a Daryl Jacob, you mean? I'm okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
And
I noticed that Ruby Walters come out and said, I'm probably going to be fitter next week.
That was a big result for the bookmakers in the end. Ruby Walsh injuring himself. I think it was in the Triumph, wasn't it? Was it on the Triumph on the Friday? Because he was on a highly touted Briar Hill in the next or the subsequent race, which was one of the biggest gambles in the meeting. And without Ruby Walsh, well, that's a significant loss.
And who's to say that he might not have won the Gold Cup as well? But Billy, obviously, we can't. I don't know. You can comment too much on this subject. But
No, not really. It's good that obviously there's a scheme to look after jockeys. Take a fall any day of the week, and suddenly you've lost your income. So
one very good question from a punting point of view. I don't know. Obviously, the concern of the jockey's priority, but does it really have to take an hour for the ambulance to go when there's a delay? Can not be an ambulance meet them halfway?
Well, the instruction says seriously injured jockeys must go in one of the racecourse ambulances.
Yeah.
And they're there for a reason. Jockeys,
jump
jockeys
extra ambulance should be there because it gets delayed.
Well, there are 3 ambulances at a jumps meeting, which is why you won't see the necessary delays. Like Stratford, the air ambulance was called, and 2 of them were being transported to hospital from the same race. A lot of flat tracks will only have 2 ambulances. So if one of them goes, and particularly if it goes with the RMO, they can't race until that ambulance returns, which is fine. The other thing, just very quickly, on the welfare of jockeys, it's not always about injuries. We've got Pat Cosgrave at the moment dealing with Dubai, who's already been banned for a month, and we've appealed it. We put in his substantive...
Was he not banned for 6 months, was it?
But he's already served a month of it. So we put in his substantive grounds of appeal 2.5 weeks ago, and we still don't have a date from the Emirates Racing Authority. They are the appeal board over there, which is independent. No criticism of them. Any orders they've made have been timely. But the ERA as a regulator, it is a complete joke that we still don't have a date for Pat and he's banned. And if we've not got a date by Tuesday, I think we'll be properly jumping up and down about it. Because his grounds of appeal are unbelievably strong. He should win. But it's a complete miscarriage of justice that he is still banned now and not had his appeal.
About the length of the ban.
We're talking about the finding itself and the length of the ban, but justice delayed is justice denied, and he's already served 31 days for something that, even if he'd have been found guilty over here, was 7-day offence.
we're going to wrap up. I'm going to quickly go over to Tom.
Yeah. Last couple of tweets coming in, slightly off topic, but still a bone of contention. Dan Cooper says anyone with an internet connection has 24-hour access to a FOBT. Essentially, it's a fair point, Dan. Again, probably leading to the demise in racing. Last thought to leave you with, and this probably is the best tweet of the night that's coming from Matt. Says, question, what would Jeff Banks do if he was told tomorrow that he was to be the head of the BHA? Now, I'll leave you with that considerably sort of nightmare thought, and maybe we can get a few points in from Jeff on that, but hopefully answers on a postcard, please, mate.
Well, he's got about 30 seconds to answer. We need another hour show for that, Jeff. Presumably you do a lot of changes, wouldn't you?
Listen, I do have a life, I do have a life. No, I'm happy with what I do in life.
Okay, we've just been told I can add a couple of minutes. I just want to go back to the Pat Cosgrave incident. We all saw that. incident, and you feel that it wasn't justified to give the jockey that length of time.
No, of course not. For what he's ridden a horse from the front, the horse run it's a career best race. It's come third in a Grade 1. Pat is financially better off winning that race. He's not made any manoeuvre at all, and even if he's guilty of allowing his horse to drift off the rail and looked over his shoulder and seen his stablemate there, even if that's happened, and Pat would deny that, but the videos doesn't look great. 7 days over here, 6 months over there, 31 days after the event, and he's been banned this whole time. 18 days after we've put in detailed and very strong grounds of appeal, and the ERA still haven't given him a date because the guy that's currently running it is over here at the moment.
Okay, well, hopefully Paul will be back on by the next time they do review that. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, Paul. Jeff, thanks as usual for coming down. It's been an interesting debate. And Billy, thank you too. Also, I'd like to thank the audience at home for participating. Thank Tom in Twitter Corner as well. We'll be back on Saturday. We're back at 11 o'clock previewing Kempton and Haydock. We'll see you then. Don't forget to join us 11 on Saturday.